I call to order the regular meeting of the Anchorage Assembly for October the 9th, 2012. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Drummond. Here. Trainee.
Here.
Honeman.
Here.
Gray Jackson.
Honored to be here.
Hall.
Here.
Johnston. Here. Wait, Johnston's participating telephonically. Starr.
Here.
Trombley. Trombley will be joining us telephonically shortly. Osiander. Flynn. Birch.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Birch, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? We now have before us for approval the minutes of June 19th, 2012. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any changes or amendments? If I see no objection, we will accept the minutes as presented. We'll move into our reports. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate your indulgence this last week visiting with me to the horticulture department, where the flagpole from the windstorm, the veterans flagpole that fell down from the park strip, had fallen down, and I appreciate you taking the time to go with me to see whether any of that wood could be salvageable or maybe create something that could be sold on behalf of veterans. So thank you for taking that time. The chair and I also helped dedicate the new soccer stadium out at Kincaid Park, and what a fantastic facility for this community. It is unbelievable. As you walk out there, you've got this beautiful turf field with an electronic scoreboard and a stadium with stands that looks like you'd walked onto a college campus. So the Kincaid Project Group, ConocoPhillips, all the folks that supported that project, including our hardworking staff at Park and Rec, tremendous, tremendous job. And if you haven't been out there, oh my goodness, take the opportunity, because it is really something special. Mr. Chairman, as you know, we last week at this time introduced the budget with a couple of options, and we will have a work session this Friday and look forward to working with the Assembly on coming to a resolution on what we'll do for 2013. And I know there'll be good, lively discussion. And part of that lively discussion happened for me last Friday night at the Mountain View Community Summit. And I had the opportunity to meet with the Mountain View community leaders who were rightfully concerned about what might happen to the Mountain View Boys and Girls Club facility, which is clearly a rec center that we support. And we had thought at the time, just so the public knows the current status, that they would be receiving the $4 million that we had received from the legislature to purchase Waldron Lake, and with $4 million in hand would easily be able to handle the costs of those facilities that we now currently subsidize. But as it turns out, that is tied up in litigation. So I did make the commitment to that body that at Mountain View that we would indeed continue our support of the Mountain View and Muldoon community centers. And so as we discuss this on Friday and in the budget deliberations, I'm hoping the body will concur that that's an important contribution. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, one other thing. Today, the Alaska Travel Industry Association, 1,100 members strong, are in town for their annual convention, and just a tremendous group working every single day to promote tourism in Alaska, and clearly Anchorage gets a large benefit from that. So they've got a number of functions over the week, and I know Assembly members are probably invited to some of those, but a group very worthy of our support, and they again will be spending a lot of money in the community over the next few days, so we appreciate them being here.
We'll make a point to let them know how much we appreciate them. I do want to add to the report the mayor made in regards to Kincaid Park and the new soccer field. We can guarantee that they've got impeccable drainage. I've never seen a downpour the way it was raining when we were out there this afternoon. But I did leave that meeting with a classic quote, and a lot of you may have heard this. A representative of ConocoPhillips was there, who happens to be from Norway. And everybody was grousing a bit about it. It was chilly and wet and rainy. And his comment was, there's no such thing as bad weather, only inadequate clothing. So I'm going to take that one with me and make sure I never show up in inadequate clothing again. The Assembly, I'd like to share with you, the Alaska Municipal League Conference is in Anchorage, the 14th through the 16th. I would really encourage each and every one of us to participate that in any form or fashion that we can. The early registration deadline is this Friday, so if you'd like to be a part of that, please let the clerk know so she can address the early registration for you. And with that, that concludes my report, and I will go to Mr. Birch.
No specific committee reports, but I would note that I felt fortunate to participate with the school district and the school board last week on our quarterly opportunity to get together and talk budget issues. I thought that was a very helpful meeting. It was a good opportunity. I know we have a few follow-up issues to deal with that are budget related, but I thought that was good. I also had an opportunity to participate with several of this body on the new open house for Covenant House and their new facilities, which just are coming along tremendously and making great progress, and it's going to be a real positive addition to the community all the way around. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Birch. Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few things. I'll be a little longer than usual. I apologize for that in advance. First off, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate your support for the Mountain View and Northeast Community Centers. That's a big deal and
Yep.
much appreciated.
My pleasure.
Secondly, in your addendum tonight are ordinances 100 and 228. They relate to the, Ordinance 100, Resolution 228, related to the CIB's capital improvement budget and capital improvement project list. Both of those will inform our discussions in the legislative committee as we develop our plan to send to Juneau and seek support from our legislative delegation. So please take a few minutes to read through that and make sure there's nothing missing or inaccurate so that we can have a robust discussion and get a good solid plan together in a prompt manner. Final item I'll address is the AMAT's policy committee met, I think it was last week, actually it's a couple weeks ago, and the only significant item we did was releasing the 2011 to 2014 major TIP amendment. Just to gently remind you how this process works, you saw the MTP, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, come through a few months ago. Things that are on that list then end up in our Transportation Improvement Project list. That's the TIP. Once we approve that, it goes to the state, and hopefully those projects get included in the statewide Transportation Improvement Project list. A couple of things about this particular TIP amendment. First off, normally we'd be preparing a brand new TIP looking further forward. However, for two reasons we're not. One, we're behind because we spent so much time on the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Two, the source of money has changed. The new Transportation Improvement Fund from the federal government is now known as MAP 21. There's less money in it for our program, and there are standards, I guess we'll call them metrics, that are authorized, expected within the legislation, but not yet fully formed by the Federal Department of Transportation. So what we're going to do is take what was an illustrative year, meaning here's the projects that are out there, but we're not really sure how we're going to pay for them, for 2014, amend our existing Transportation Improvement Project list to include 2014 and make sure it's fiscally constrained, and then begin work on a new TIP that looks out further. The functional effect of this is pretty minimal except for two things. One, we lost about $10 million for what we were expecting previously for 2013 and 2014. And two, the recommendations are such that we are taking our TE, transportation enhancements, that's the bike paths, pedestrian improvements, so on and so forth, down to the minimum for the next couple of years. And different minds can argue as to whether that's appropriate or not appropriate and the effect it will have and so on and so forth. But I'd be happy to speak with any of you and explain that a little more further or answer any questions now. And I apologize if that was longer than usual and a little more confusing than usual, but felt it was important you all had that information.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. Ms. Osiander.
Mr. Flynn, will we be able to see that amendment in some form before you guys actually act on it?
You betcha. So here it is. And again, all we did was release it for public comment, 30 days. After that's done, then it goes to planning and zoning for their review. Then it comes to us for our review, and then the policy committee will finally approve it.
Okay.
So we've got several months in front of us
All right.
to get this all done.
All right. And then my second question, I may ask you because Ms. Johnston isn't here. Is the Utilities Committee going to be reviewing and making a recommendation on the utility budgets?
Well, she's here in spirit, if
Yes.
not in the flesh.
Oh, I can wait then. Ms. Johnston, if you heard that, if you could answer that in your report, I'd appreciate it.
Ms. Johnson?
I didn't hear it. I'm sorry. It's been kind of breaking and didn't hear it.
You're not dozing off on us, are you? I know you're
But it's my
quite...
time for the report.
Would you like to repeat that, Ms. Osiander? Ms. Osiander will repeat that question to you.
Ms. Johnston, when you give your report, would you announce if your committee is going to give recommendation on the utility budgets?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then I wanted to announce that we just had a quick change of plans this afternoon in regards to Title 21. Unfortunately, Mr. Weaver's not here, and I don't, oh, Erica, all right. Ms. McConnell, we are hoping to skip this Thursday and move to next Thursday because I don't have a full committee. Would that be problematic? Just yes or no? You don't know? Fine. All right. There will be no Title 21 committee meeting this Thursday, even though it is noticed, because I don't have a full committee. We will be meeting then the following Thursday, 9:30 to 12:30, and the first issue is still to talk about industrial uses, and then we're finishing up some items from Chapter 7 and Chapter 5. If you want more detail, give me a call. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnston?
Yes, first of all, as far as Ms. Ocean's question, we have met with each of the enterprise units and discussed what we were looking for out of their budget. And their budget will be coming out as part of the presentation for our budget presentation. If there are concerns after that, then the committee will have additional meetings before we actually vote on the budget, and we will give recommendations. The other part I would like to report on is some of you might have read in the paper about the Mayor's Energy Task Force meeting. And the takeaway is we have kicked the energy can down the road with conservation, new power generation, new gas and Cook Inlet, and gas storage, but we will still be short within the next couple of years of what we need for our energy. We will have to be importing either liquid natural gas or compressed natural gas until we have our own local gas production or gas line and or alternative energy production, or all the above. So you're going to be hearing more about permitting or design to bring the imported liquid natural gas, compressed natural gas to our Alaska market, the bridge until we are more self-sufficient. That's the end of the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Trombley?
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Starr?
Thank you. From the Budget Department, of course, as the Mayor said, the first presentation by the administration is this Friday. You'll notice from the schedule as well as we have a meeting in reserve for the 19th. And the idea with this one is that if we go long this Friday or we have expanded conversations that require an additional meeting, then we'll go ahead and pick it up the following Friday, including such things as the enterprise budgets and anything else that the committee may recommend. And again, all the budget meetings carried forward in our committees of the whole, so we'll look for that participation. But if we have no big issues that need to be resolved, we'll just move into public hearings and cancel the week from Friday's meeting. But to the administration, thanks for your preparation of the paperwork and organization. It's all online as well. I did quite a bit of my reading there, as well as the links and the references are very well done this year. Thank you for that. So look forward to your presentation on Friday. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Mr. Flynn?
Just real quick, what's the proposed time for on the 19th if we're going to have it? Is it the 1 to 3 that's on here?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
the 1 to 3 on the 19th of October if
Okay.
we need it.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Trainee.
Star, would you make sure the fire chief is going to be there when we deal with the fire department's budget, please?
Yeah, of course, the idea there, and also the police chief as well.
I know, but I want the fire chief
Yes,
there,
sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have an audit committee report this evening, but I do just want to let the body know that a week from today, Mr. Trainee and I will be hosting a community forum in this auditorium with the South Central Foundation Warriors Program and the Campbell Park area citizens to talk and discuss and hopefully come to some kind of consensus regarding a conditional use and South Central's expansion off of Tudor. I can't remember the street. But anyway, I just want to let folks know we'll be here a week from today from 5:30 to 7:30. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Gray Jackson. Mr. Honeman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tomorrow at noon here at the Lusac Library, we'll have the Public Safety Committee meeting for October. Of course, we'll hear from the department's concerns and upcoming issues, particularly as it pertains to budget. Now we know the budget presented. Also, we'll have folks there from with an update on any results they've made, inroads with the state legislature on the Let 'em Work, Let 'em Play. You might recall that's the under 21 but over 18 musicians who'd like to play in some of the clubs around town, and they're supposed to bring in some updates of where they're at and what suggestions we may moving forward from the municipal side. And then also we'll have Mr. Tony Wilkerson from Workplace Building Institute, and he'll be discussing some suggestions of perhaps law changes, municipal ordinance-wise, to try to further prevent bullying in Anchorage. So, yeah. One quick question to the administration, and it looks like the mayor stepped out, but perhaps anybody might be able to, Labor Relations, can someone by work session give us an update of any negotiations with communications with Labor on their positions on the budget as it presents in an attempt to essentially make sure we continue with services and not lose personnel for the 2013 year. So I'd like to see if there's an update on where we're at with negotiations with Labor.
Okay. Through the chair, I'll pass that on to the mayor and to the ER director.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Mr. Trainee?
Just for my colleagues, if you get a chance, stop by the fire department and see how this budget's going to impact them. I was in Southport, and that's going to dramatically affect that whole neighborhood, because if there's an incident, say you need a paramedic, it's going to have to come from either Sand Lake or Huffman to get there. It will double the response time. And I've talked about Truck 11, Eagle River, and that's a real concern because of the problems we've had with people floating down the river. I think that one gentleman that was saved about 3 weeks ago was saved using Truck 11. So I get concerned when we start talking about cutting basic government service to the public, which is police and fire. So if you get a chance, stop by the fire stations and talk to them. Thank you, Ernie.
Thank you, Mr. Trainee. Ms. Drummond?
No report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Osiander?
I'm sorry, I was remiss. I also want to announce a public meeting that will be held at the Eagle River Town Center on October 15th at 7 p.m. to deal with taxi issues or lack of taxi issues in Chuyak Eagle River area and in the military bases. So that's at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Honeman?
Just wanted to make sure, okay, it's Monday, I'm sorry. Just make sure it's not a...
Monday, it's actually a meeting of the Transportation Commission, but they're going to be meeting out there on this topic.
I'd like to attend if I could.
Super, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the indulgence. I believe before the next official assembly meeting, we'll have delegates from the Alaska Federation Natives Conference in Anchorage. So I wanted to take an opportunity not to miss welcoming the AFN convention and conventioneers and delegates to Anchorage. And of course, that's within Youth and Elders Conference as well as the AFN delegation.
Thank you, Mr. Honeman. Anyone else? We now have before us the addendum to the agenda. I would have a motion to incorporate.
Move to incorporate.
Okay, thank you. Motion and a second. Any objection? Seeing none, I will read the addendum into the minutes, beginning with 9A2. AR number 236, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing October 1st through the 14th, 2012 as Binational Health Week in Anchorage, Alaska. We have 9F5, ordinance or AO 99, an ordinance of the Municipality of Anchorage adopting and appropriating funds for the 2013 General Government Operating Budget for the Municipality of Anchorage, Office of Budget and Management. We have F6, ordinance 100, an ordinance of the Municipality of Anchorage adopting the 2013 General Government Capital Improvement Budget, Office of Management. That's accompanied by AM 561. We have F7, AR 228, a resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage approving the 2013 through 2018 General Government Capital Improvement Program, Office of Management and Budget. That is accompanied by AM 562. We have F8, AO 101, an ordinance adopting and appropriating funds for the 2013 Municipal Utilities Enterprise Activities Operating Budget and the 2013 Municipal Utilities Enterprise Activity in Capital Improvement Budget. And that is accompanied by AM 563. F9, AR 229, a resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage approving the 2013 through 2018 Municipal Utilities Enterprise Activity Central Improvement Program, and that's accompanied by AM 564. We have F10, AO 102, an ordinance adopting and appropriating funds for the 2013 operating and capital budget of the Anchorage Community Development Authority. That's accompanied by AM 565. We have F11, AO 103, an ordinance waiving or modifying certain provisions of Title 21 and delegating authority to the Community Development Department to review and approve a temporary conditional use permit to Municipal Light and Power for use of municipal property legally described as Lot 2, Block 36, Block 35, East Addition as a storage yard for upcoming power plant improvements. That's accompanied by AM 599. And we have F12 AO 104, an omnibus ordinance of the Anchorage Assembly amending the Anchorage Municipal Code and Anchorage Municipal Code of Regulations to modify existing and include additional fees, fines, and penalties. That is accompanied by AM 600. We also have one laid on the table that is AR 237, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing October 2012 as Bullying Awareness Month and October 14th through 2012 as Freedom from Bullies Week. That is the addendum to the agenda. A motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, could I have a point of order just for a moment?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Mahoney, I noticed that the 6-year fiscal plan isn't part of the addendum to the agenda, nor is it an AM attached to anything. Was it in your intention, or had you already submitted the 6-year fiscal plan? I didn't see it, and I'd really like to have a public hearing on it at the same time the budget moves through. So perhaps we could rectify that.
That was strictly an oversight, and it should have been submitted, and I thought it was. So we'll need to do something
tonight.
pretty quick.
We can just, as long as we get it in somewhere for the meeting tonight, I think the chairman would allow us to submit an additional agenda item. Is that protocol, Mr. Chairman, do you think? Can we get that in for?
I don't see a problem with doing that.
Just need to bring it back to the body and amend the agenda for submission.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay. Thank you. Items to be pulled. Mr. Birch.
No items.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn.
None, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Osiander. Mr. Trombley.
No items.
Mr. Starr.
I'm not trying to be wordy here, but 9 Echo 1. And we could resolve it now. It's for a point of personal conflict, perhaps. I don't know if you want a chair's ruling on it now or not. It may affect all of us.
Let's pull it later. Ms. Johnston.
No items, thank you.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to pull 9A1 and 9 Apple 3. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Horniman.
No items, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Trainee.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to pull it necessarily, but on an item F12 on our addendum agenda, I would like a work session on that. This sets fees and fines across the board, and before, when we haven't had a work session, it ends up biting us.
Very
So
good.
if you want to go ahead and set a work session, I won't pull it, but I do want a work session on it.
I'll see to it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Ms. Drummond.
Everything that I need to be pulled has been pulled. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a resolution that needs to be pulled? Just the one, A1?
And A3.
A3.
Laid on the table.
Very good. Okay, let me go through the items that have been pulled. We have A1, A3, E1, E3. Any other items?
There's an E3.
Okay, seeing, hearing none, I would take a...
Ernie, isn't it A3 because there is no E3?
Yeah.
Oh, A3, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I heard that as E. Very good. A1, A3, and E1.
Got it.
Very good. Okay. Any objection to approving the consent agenda less the items that were pulled? Seeing, hearing no objection, we will approve the consent agenda. We now have before us item A1.
Move to approve.
Second. Oh.
Okay. Ms., who's going to read? Any objection to approval? Seeing, hearing none, that will be approved. Who's reading? Ms. Gray Jackson.
A resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing October 2012 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas Alaska continues to lead the nation in reported rates of domestic violence and sexual assault. And whereas, based on calls to the National Domestic Violence Hotline in 2011, Anchorage is ranked first in call volume in the state of Alaska, with 96% of the callers reporting emotional or verbal abuse, 67% reporting physical abuse, and 8% reporting sexual abuse. And whereas domestic violence is a pervasive problem that affects many Alaskans throughout urban, rural, and bush Alaska, regardless of age, gender, race, socioeconomic status, culture, religion, education, and political party affiliation. And whereas most victims of domestic violence are women, and 75% of the women in Alaska have experienced or know someone who has experienced domestic violence or sexual assault. And whereas children in homes where they witness domestic violence are more likely to be abused, neglected, have emotional and behavioral problems, and if male, be 4 times more likely to perpetrate domestic violence as adults. And whereas, although our commitment to stopping violence continues to make progress through changing policy, increasing access to protective orders and legal advocacy, improving victim services, and communicating with our youth about respectful relationships, there remains a significant gap between funding and the demand for services. And whereas Abused Women's Aid in Crisis, also known as AWAKE, will hold its annual fundraiser, Silent Nights, Starry Nights, on October 27, 2012 at 6:30 p.m. at the Captain Cook Hotel. And whereas we must continue to work together in our community to increase public awareness and participate in events that assist domestic violence prevention. Now and therefore, be it resolved that the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizes October 12th as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Passed and approved this 9th day of October 2012.
Just a brief comment, please, Chair Hall, members of the Assembly. To Ms. Jackson, Gray Jackson, I would like to say thank you very much from Awake. I realize that there's much recognition each month for many activities, many issues in our country and in our communities. Domestic Violence Awareness Month is very important as a recognition for victims and survivors and those who are affected, families and friends for domestic violence victims. In Anchorage alone, 58% of women in this community have experienced domestic violence or sexual assault. That's over half of the women in this community have experienced domestic violence or sexual assault. So it is a very pervasive problem. I would also like to mention and invite members to an event that we are holding called Shed the Light. It is an event for faith-based communities to honor victims of domestic violence on October 24th of this month. And we will be providing a sermon through many congregations. The primary congregation, if you would like to attend, is First United Methodist Church on 9th. And we will be doing a sermon as well as lighting lanterns and releasing them in honor of victims and survivors of domestic violence. Once again, I thank you all for your support and your acknowledgement of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Have a good evening.
May we get your name for the record, please?
So sorry. Susie Pearson. I'm the Executive Director for Abuse Women's Aid in Crisis.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We now have before us item A3.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any objection? Seeing, hearing none, that is approved. Ms. Gray Jackson is reading.
The resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizing October 2012 as Bullying Awareness Month and October 14th through the 20th, 2012 as Freedom from Bullies Week. Whereas bullying has become an increasing and prevalent problem in cities nationwide. And whereas, based on a 2012 national survey, 35% of American workers reported bullying in the workplace, and nearly 35% of elementary through college-level students reported bullying in the schools, with some experts recognizing bullying as a silent epidemic. And whereas surveys and studies have documented the stress-related health consequences for individuals caused by exposure to bullying. And whereas bullying in Anchorage's workplace and learning environments can create costly consequences for employers and educators, including reduced productivity, absenteeism, turnover, and employee and student health-related expenses, which may include the risk of teenage suicide. And whereas Anchorage has an interest in promoting the social and economic well-being of its employees, citizens, and students. And whereas that well-being depends upon the existence of healthy and productive employees and students in safe physical and emotional work and learning environments. And whereas prevention of bullying should apply to every citizen, worker, and student, because bullying is not limited to status based on race, color, gender, national origin, age, or disability. And whereas fair application of employer and educator evaluations, direction, instruction, discipline, and counseling are not bullying, and bullying has no legitimate place in schools or on the job. And whereas all persons are encouraged to acknowledge and address the consequences of bullying and stand together in opposition of bullying within the Anchorage community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Anchorage Municipal Assembly recognizes October 2012 as Bullying Awareness Month and October 14th through the 20th, 2012 as Freedom from Bullies Week, passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly this 9th day of October 2012.
Thank you. My name is Tony Wilkinson. I'm from the Workplace Bullying Institute. We're just a grassroots organization of professional and blue-collar citizens concerning in closing the gap in current laws that don't address workplace bullying. My presence here today and the issuing of the 2 proclamations and the resolution shows the public, your constituents, the direction that our representatives have taken in addressing the issue that is corrupting our society. And I know I speak for a vast majority of your constituents when I say you are to be commended for this. Raising the awareness of bullying is an important step in addressing an issue that has corrupted our society, communities, schools, and workplace. Here in Anchorage, the late Attorney Dennis Mahoney took the torch in raising the issue of bullying and sponsored by benefit Bye Bye Bullies, an international anti-bullying organization where known jazz artist Jeff Golan and Rick Braun performed at the Atwood Concert Hall. Across our nation, Americans are waking up to the realization of bullying and the damaging effect that it leaves behind, and Alaska is not immune to the effects. A few years ago, I recall a tragic story that took place down in Soldotna's Hospital, where an employee went on a shooting spree. And the shooting spree only involved individuals that would directly supervise this employee. And the grievance officer that contacted me said that it was his opinion that this was the result of workplace bullying. Let's face it, nobody deserves to be bullied, and work shouldn't hurt. And the direction that the Anchorage Assembly members and Mayor Sullivan has taken by declaring October Bullying Awareness Month and your recognition from Freedom from Bullying Week is proof. And I'll go a step further, and I challenge the Anchorage Assembly members and the mayor to actually adopt this into the Anchorage Code to make Anchorage safe for all to work and achieve the American dream of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Horniman?
Yes, and I want to thank both Mr. Wilkerson and the Executive Director of STAR. It seems like, we just acknowledged awareness of the entire month of October, both Bullying Awareness Month as well as awareness for domestic violence, and the two can go hand in hand. No one deserves to be bullied, and no one should bully. So I just want to thank you, Mr. Wilkerson, for your steadfast drive and ambition on taking such a worthy cause on. It's a big issue in the largest city in Anchorage, and I appreciate the information and staying in touch with me to make sure we get this.
Oh, yes, I will. And I do have handouts just in case you guys want to see some of the statistics. And I will be present tomorrow for the presentation. If anybody would like to attend, that's tomorrow at 12 o'clock, the Safety Committee here at the Municipal Library. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have before us item 9E1. Mr. Starr.
Move to accept.
Second.
Any objection? Seeing, hearing none, that is accepted. Mr. Starr.
Well, it happened to me once. There's 329 names on these boards and commissions, and Mr. Wheeler, perhaps you could let us know, once these folks get on these boards and commissions, are they prohibited from giving campaign donations to those that serve on this body and some of the other things? Do you know if that's in fact true for all boards and commissions?
Through the chair, Mr. Starr, can you rephrase the question? Giving contributions from who to who?
Anybody that's an appointed board member on this list, the 329 names, I believe we have code language somewhere that restricts them from being able to give political donations. Is that right?
I'll check that for you and get right back to you.
If you could get back to us on that. I believe that's right, but I'm not sure if it's for all boards and commissions or just some of them. So, thank you.
I think it's just the Board of Ethics.
I think it's some.
Yeah, it's some, and I really am happy these folks want to serve, but they wade into the APOC violation category, and so do the candidates that they help. So, if you could get back to me on that, and perhaps a memo to the board and commission members that are on the list there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Flynn? Nope. Mr. Trainee?
Does that mean, Bill, that my wife can't cook dinner for me? I know she doesn't anyway, but she couldn't, according to
Mr. Wheeler's
check with you, Bill.
Mr. Wheeler's checking it out. He'll let you know.
Go beyond the pale of reason.
And I'm certain that it's the Board of Ethics members for sure, but I believe there's other boards and commissions.
I think it's just the Board of Ethics, but we'll look at it.
I just like the ruling. Thank you.
Ms. Drummond, you withdrew your name?
I did. After we're done with this item, I'd like to mention something, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Well, we are done with this item.
Did we need to vote on it?
We already have.
All right. Thank you. I would like to acknowledge all the people that we appointed tonight.
You just stole my thunder.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I didn't want to start
No.
giving them a hard time about campaign donations before thanking them for their service.
As a matter of fact, I think there were 329 names, as Mr. Starr just mentioned. Obviously, you're not all here tonight, but anyone that is here that has just been appointed to a board or a commission, we would really appreciate if you'd come up and introduce yourself and tell us which board or commission we just appointed you to, so we can tell you how much we appreciate your being willing to give of your time and efforts for the service of this community.
I'm Nancy Grosek, and I'm on the Library Advisory Board, and we appreciate your support of the library. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm James Jurgen on the Library Board also, and thank you for giving me an opportunity to work with such a great group of people and a fine institution. It's wonderful.
Thank you for your service.
Al Millspaw, Animal Control Advisory Board, and I sure enjoy it.
Thank you, sir. Hi.
Hi, I'm Regina Chenault. I'm a surgeon in town, and I'm reappointed to the Mayor's Advisory EMS Board, and I'm honored to serve, and I thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Diane Fegis, and I've recently been appointed to the Investment Advisory Commission, and I appreciate the offer to serve.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. I'm Sherry Northern from Anchorage Waterways Council, and I'm on the Watershed and Natural Resources Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to continue.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm Marilyn Porter. I'm with the Anchorage Memorial Park Cemetery Advisory Board, and I thank you too.
Thank you.
And I'm Captain Bob Pulowski, and I really appreciate continuing on the Watershed and Natural Resource Advisory Board. But more importantly, I'm very proud to join the Port Commission.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tim Trover, and I'm recently appointed to the Heritage Land Bank Advisory Commission. I'm looking forward to serving. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sharon Chris, and I'm on the Human Resource Advisory Board, and this is my third appointment, and thank you for allowing me to continue to serve.
Thank you.
I'm Andrew Ohms. I'm a new appointee to the Public Transit Advisory Board, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gray Jackson?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say a few words when they're done, and I just want to get in early. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very well.
I'm Tim Sullivan. Thanks for the reappointment to the Public Transit Advisory Board, and I will continue contributing.
Thank you.
My name is John Dyson. Just completed a first term on the Parks and Rec Commission, and appreciate the support. Looking forward to the second term. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Brett Jokla. I'm working with the Watershed Natural Resources Commission, and thank you again for the reappointment. We enjoy our work. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Crittenden on the Anchorage Historic Properties Commission. I'm being reappointed. I thank you for the reappointment. We have a real energetic group here, and thanks to Christine Bonnell's courageous and very helpful encouragement from the municipality.
Thank you.
My name is Royal Field. I'm a new appointee to the Board of Building Regulation Examiners and Appeals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Steele, and I'm a reappointment to the Building Board, and thank you for your support.
Thank you.
My name is Bernadette Bradley. You just reappointed me on the Transportation Commission. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Serena O'Donnell. I'm a reappointment to the Board of Building Regulation Examiners and Appeals. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, young man.
Good evening. My name is Norman Elliott. I'm seeking reappointment to the Sister Cities Commission and also appointment to the Veterans and Military Affairs Commission, having been a World War II veteran serving from April the 7th, 41 to April 21st, 1946 in Europe. Thank you.
Father Elliott, thank you for your service.
Craig Ferdine, reappointment to a building board, and thank you for allowing me to continue to serve.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I was reviewing my agenda, I couldn't believe all the board and commission appointments that we were going to have this evening, and I was wondering how many of you would show up. And I want you to know that I'm really glad that so many of you did show up, and I absolutely thank you for volunteering your service. But I want to give a really special thank you to Father Elliott, who it's in your resume that you were born in 1990, so you're 93 years old, and you should be enjoying your life. But thank you so much for willing to work with the people in our community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Gray-Jackson. Mr. Honeman.
Well, I want to echo exactly the comments Ms. Gray-Jackson said, and I know it's kind of the tough act to follow with the last kind of line behind Father Elliott, but I just think it's very important that we have as much wisdom and learned experience from our community taking part and taking the time out to help us guide us through some challenges and some a greater future for Anchorage. So thank you for all your efforts and your commitment to the city. So to all of you, thanks, sir.
Mr. Starr.
Well, I noticed Ms. Mahoney hadn't identified herself as another appointee to ACDA and some of those others that you serve diligently to, and I appreciate that extra work that goes into your job. Thank you.
Yes, once again, on my behalf and the Assembly, the administration, thank all of you, particularly those of you that are up for second and third terms. That's just showing sheer dedication, so we can't tell you how much we appreciate it. A quick announcement I want to share. We have item 14B that's going to be before us this evening, the John Thomas building, and I want everyone that's here in regards to that particular action to understand that is going to be postponed until the 23rd. We will open it for public testimony tonight, but I have decided that I will continue that testimony until the 23rd. You only get the opportunity to testify once, and the circumstances may have changed by the time we address this on the 23rd. So just a heads up, if you're here tonight, you're welcome to testify, but you will only get to testify one time on that topic, and it will be postponed until the 23rd. With that, we're going to break quickly and do an evening dinner break, and we'll be back shortly. Thank you.
Requests before 6:30.
Thank you. Any objection?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This end, had also a point of personal privilege regarding some scouts in the office.
We are going to get the scouts introduced, but we need to do the public appearance prior to 6:30.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Mr. Hawk, can I have a question too?
Yes.
My question is, I was just told that potentially the sign ordinance will be postponed, and there is staff here. Do we need to have the staff stay since it's there, or can they go home?
I don't know that we need staff here for that.
I would, she's a hard worker. I'd like her to be able to go home.
Good night, Erica.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let me catch up with myself here real quick. We have item 12B, Anchorage's promise to present the municipality with the 100 Best Communities for Young People Award.
Hello.
Hello. Floor is yours.
All right. Well, my name is Tanya Maisley, and I'm the program director with Anchorage's Promise. And we have two members here from our Youth Action Board.
I'm Gage Dabin.
And I'm Kiana Mitchell. And then we also have two board members here, which is Lynn over here. You want to come say?
Hi, everyone. Lynn Classert. Yeah, Dick Wells.
So thank you for having us here tonight. But we're excited to be here because we have won an award, and Anchorage has been recognized as one of the 100 best communities for young people. This is the 6th time that Anchorage has received this award, so it's a huge honor for our city. This award is unique in that it doesn't just represent our organization's efforts, but it also represents all the other organizations within our community that we partner with. With everyone working together, we have made Anchorage an outstanding place to live, learn, and grow. And just to tell you a little bit about Anchorage's promise, our purpose is to help youth, parents, and community members understand the importance of ensuring that each young person receives the 5 fundamental resources that they need to allow them to grow into caring adults. We call these the 5 promises: caring adults, safe places, healthy start, effective education, and opportunities to help others. And one of the ways that we're able to share and promote these promises is at Kids Day and Teen City, which this year will be on April 20th, and we're excited because this marks the 30th anniversary for Kids Day this coming year. One of the other great things that we have is our Youth Action Board. We have 2 representatives here tonight. The Youth Action Board is made up of youth from all different high schools throughout town, and they have really helped bring awareness to issues that they feel may be lacking within their peer groups. And I know they're excited to start working on their next project, which is the Solidarity Sleep Out, coming in January, which the focus will be on providing resources on teen suicide and bullying. So I'd like to turn it over to them. They're going to tell a little bit about their event, and just all of these activities and things really help bring awareness to the part of the reasons of why we received this award, and I'll let Gage share.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gage David, and tonight I wanted to share with you one of the promises. The promise I wanted to talk about is the opportunity to help others. The members from our Youth Action Board felt that it was important to bring awareness to our peers about teen suicide and bullying. We view this as an opportunity to help others and are planning.
We are planning for Solidarity Sleep Out to focus on the attention on teen insecurities and how we can help them improve. We can help improve our community for our teens.
Great. Right. With that, as you all can see, the lovely award here, and
we are going to have our honorable mayor come and receive that.
Great. And we know he takes good care of it at his office, so thank you.
Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Just a moment. Mr. Horniman?
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Wells, who's obviously the president of Automated Laundry and a fabulous business that supports Anchorage's Promise, has for many years. So thank you, Mr. Wells and company, and Lynn as well. And Ms. Maisley, thank you for making sure that we're made aware of the award. And I know there's a photo opportunity here, so once we get past that, I just ask if the 2 young folks here would just sweetly and summarily just give me one of the reasons that they find Anchorage one of the 100 best places to live. Thanks.
You can come up here. Come on around so you get a great photograph.
So I don't know if you heard the question, but it's 100 plus best communities for young people. What makes Anchorage one of the best 100 best communities for you?
For me, I think it's the diverse culture which Anchorage brings. I mean, all these kids come from so many different backgrounds, and what we're able to bring to the table to just try to help each other out, it's just something that you don't really find in a lot of other cities, and that makes Anchorage so unique.
Thanks for sharing.
No problem, sir.
Very good.
I agree with Gage. Our diverse cultures, I've been to several schools in Anchorage, and just every type of culture. We just learn everything about it, and it really teaches us to keep open minds and everything, and that's what I think makes Anchorage one of the best
Thank you.
communities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. One final comment here. Mr. Wells, I know how long that you have struggled and fought and maintained Anchorage's promise for this community, and I just want you to know that we recognize that. We appreciate it. Nonprofits are tough. I've done a lot. I even did some time on your board with you. So from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for what you do for this community, for our young people. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have a housekeeping item real quick that I need to pick up that we should have had under our consent agenda, and that's to read into the minutes for introduction, AR number 230, a resolution of the Municipality of Anchorage adopting the 2013 through 2018 six-year physical program.
Move to introduce.
Any objection? And we have a third? Any objection? Seeing, hearing none, that item is introduced.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Public hearing set for the 23rd.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Okay, we have some Boy Scouts with us this evening. Would you please come up and introduce yourselves?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and also Assembly members. My name is Tim Anderson. I'm with Troop 176 out of Kincaid Elementary, and I have 4 Boy Scouts that I'd like for you to meet.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm James Janicic. I'm a Life Scout, and we would like to invite Assembly members Drummond and Birch to the Troop 176 Scout meeting at Kincaid Elementary on Monday the 15th or 22nd. At 7 p.m. And on the 22nd, we'll be honoring 2 new Eagle Scouts in our troop at our Court of Honor, and you'll have the opportunity to meet 5 Scouts currently working on their Eagle Scout rank. And Troop 176, which is sponsored by Coulis Senior Enlisted Airmen's Association, has been very successful at producing Eagle Scouts. So, yeah.
Could you give us that date and time again, please?
Oh, Monday the 15th or Monday the 22nd of October at 7 p.m. at Kincaid Elementary.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tyler Stevens, Star Scout rank.
I'm Kyler Gorney, and I'm a first class.
I'm James Scott, and I'm Stahl.
Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate you bringing those young men out. Before I move into our items under old business, I once again want to share that we are going to postpone action on 14B, the sale of the John Thomas building, until the 23rd of October. Those of you that are here that want to testify, we will open public testimony this evening. I am going to continue it because it may be a different situation when it comes back to us on the 23rd. So be aware, if you testify tonight, you will not be able to testify at the next. You can testify one time on an agenda item. We will open it, but I will continue public testimony. Thank you. We now have before us under old business item 11A, Anchorage Community Development Board of Authority appointees, Lucinda Mahoney, Lottie M. Michael R. Mills, Terry D. Parks, and Dick A. Stallone.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objection? That is approved. We have before us 11B, AM 541, Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility Board of Directors appointments, Andrew H. Ecker and David M. Richards. This is from the Mayor's office.
Second.
Mr. Honeman.
Mr. Chairman, just to let you know that Mr. Richards was here in the audience earlier and had another commitment, so then will stay, but he wanted to send his regards should his appointment get confirmed.
Appreciate that, Mr. Honeman.
Yeah, Mr. Eaker was here too.
Okay. Any objection? Seeing, hearing none, those appointments are approved. 11C, AM 542, Board of Adjustment appointments, John E. Haxby and Robert B. Stewart.
Second.
Any objection? Seeing and hearing none, that is approved. 11D, AM 543, Planning and Zoning Commission appointments, Stacy Dean and James A. Ferguson.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any objection? Seeing and hearing none, that is approved. 11E, Assembly Memorandum, AM 544, Plating Board appointments, Stephen Abel and Ken Fuller.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any objection? Seeing, hearing none, that is approved. 11F, AM 545, Urban Design Commission appointments, Jeff Dinwiddie and Thomas J. Tiber.
Second.
Any objection? Seeing, hearing none, that is approved. We have 11G before us. That is AM 546, Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals appointments, Dale E. Patrick.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any objection? Seeing, hearing none, that is unanimously approved. We now have before us item 11H, AM 518, Amendment number 3 to vendor contract number 25HLBO15 to provide for the continuation of a lease for the Bering Street Fleet Maintenance Facilities with JLS Properties, LLC, for the Municipality of Anchorage Real Estate Services in the amount of $644,773.68.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Osiander, you have an amendment?
I do. I'm pass them out. Everybody has it? All right, this is an amendment on line 31 and 34. A proposed contract amendment 3, basically saying we'll exercise a third 3-year option period allowing for continued occupancy through December 31st, 2015, and then the new language would be, and a new option and a purchase option provision. JL Properties agrees to sell leased premises to MOA during the third option for fair market value to be determined by appraisal by an MIA licensed Alaska appraiser. And then it continues with the monthly lease payments will increase to $17,910.38 based on CPI calculations, and the total cost.
Second.
Mr. Flynn is so eager.
He is. He's a real asset. Okay, thank you, Ms. Osiander. I have you in the queue, which you are not. Mr. Flynn.
Thank you. Thank you for your help on this, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Osiander, and the administration.
Ms. Osiander, are you now in the queue again?
No, I'm in.
Okay, you just keep popping up. Seeing no one else in the queue, please vote on the amendment. Ms. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Trombley?
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously. We are now back to the original motion as amended. Seeing no one in the queue, please vote. Ms. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Trombley?
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously. We now have before us item 11I, a notice of reconsideration for Assembly Memorandum 558, sole source of professional services contract with Sioux Arts RN to provide the Women, Infants, and Children program. Thank you. This item is before us.
The question is, shall we
Well, I think the
reconsider?
question's already there, sir, is shall we reconsider? So do we have to take a vote on that,
Yes,
or do
you
I
have to
motion
have
that?
8 to reconsider it.
You've made the motion?
I sent it in, so, yeah.
Okay. We have before us the motion to reconsider. And
Mr. Hall, would it be appropriate? I'd like to know why.
Mr. Starr?
Yeah, I can talk about it. I'd like to clarify the language on 27, 28, and 29 of the action in that we really don't have guaranteed funding out to offer out the $140,000. It's somewhat related to the next item as well, but I'd like to revisit the item and move an amendment that basically it's an initial contract for $46,800.
Okay, so you just want to clarify the contract term?
Yeah, and then the meat of the discussion on the other bigger topic will be the next item if we can indulge that. So
All right.
that's my intention.
Okay. We have before us the motion to reconsider. Please vote. Ms. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Trombley?
Yes.
That motion carries 8-3. Mr. Starr?
I appreciate the indulgence of the body. I'd first, I guess, like to tender an amendment to the AM 558 2012 by striking the wording on line 28 and 29. If the additional 2-year, 1-year, if the 2 additional 1-year options are exercised, the total compensation of the contract will not to exceed $1,440. And I guess if I could get a second to that, I'd appreciate it.
Second.
Technically, this has already been sort of approved from a funding level that we approved on September 11th. And I guess I should have given you copies of 2012-214 was our resolution that put that funding out. It was a pass-through grant, and that was in the amount of $81,749 that we already approved. So what I would say is that it would be prudent to fund the $46,800 as was presented to us in the presentation back on September 11th, and then just revisit the extensions to the contract when we're more secure on their funding. And if you've read this is for an expanded program to a territory that's kind of unique for Anchorage to take on. Copper River Delta and the Prince William Sound area, sort of an oversight now is falling under the responsibility of that. And I guess I'd also like to just see how that works in terms of the caseload that we would be actually expending state dollars through this grant for residents not of Anchorage. So if we can perhaps discuss that from a year forward, I'm happy to have Sue Arts manage that program from Valdez for us, but I wouldn't want to be bound to any commitment that we would have 3 years to offer out to her.
Ms. Osiander?
To the administration, I guess I had read it assuming that this was dependent upon state funding and that it would not continue if the state wasn't there. Could you clarify that, please?
That's correct.
All right. So I guess I'm a little bit confused, Mr. Starr, because you, even though the funding of 86 is there, you only want to do the 46,000? Is that, did I understand you correctly?
I only want to do the first year, the $46,800, and I didn't pull up the contract terms for the additional 2 years, but the reference below that is the one that challenges me, 213 through 215 for $93,600. The expectation that we're going to have that to appropriate, I would want to push as much money as we can into our WIC service program as opposed to offering out 2 more years to a territory outside of Anchorage. And some of it gets addressed in the next item, just the way the money's playing out. It's getting awfully tight.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Then?
Yes, ma'am.
To the administration? So the fear, as I understand it, is that if we accept this, it's going to potentially decrease our WIC resources.
I'm going to let Janet Wittmeyer speak to that, but I don't believe that would be the case. But Janet.
Question is, will this potentially decrease our resources to provide a WIC program?
Every year, we're faced with unknown grant amounts.
Right, I understand.
So, but we have allocated enough money to be able to pay for the contracted out employee. There's going to be a lease associated with that as well. And so the total appropriated amount that you did pass back on 9/11 was about $81,000 and some. So if you're asking me if we have enough money to continue this sole source contract with this employee for a year, the answer would be yes, we have enough money for that.
Well, that wasn't quite what I asked, but that's okay. Thank you.
Mr. Flynn.
I'm not inclined to support the amendment, not because I don't understand Mr. Starr's concern, but I would note that in the preceding paragraph, it does note that it's extended by mutual consent of the Assembly and Ms. Arts, and we're spending a lot of time on a relatively small appropriation, and I would hate to spend this much time on another $40-some thousand next year, and then another $40-some thousand next year after that. So I would oppose the amendment.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank Mr. Starr for bringing forward this proposed amendment to this memorandum, but I think it really is unnecessary. The language is real clear, and it says subject to receipt and an appropriation. So I don't think we need to take this consideration any further. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Trini.
Mr. Mayor, you supported 55-8-2012 when you brought it forward to us. Is that correct, sir?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to continue to support this.
Mr. Horniman.
I think just need a little clarification. As I understand it, Mr. Starr maybe will help me, or Ms. Mahoney. So I'm reading the fund certification. It appears that the 46.8 is that's part of a grant that was already approved, but then the 93.6 appears to be the grant that is subject to receipt and appropriation. So is my understanding that the legislature has not appropriated funding? Is that right, Mr. Starr?
No, and I don't want to get real spun up on this one, and I'll move into the next topic, however, though. What you're doing, it appears like, is you're taking the $81,000 appropriation from September 11th that we did, and you're paying basically all the fees that came out of that. The really meat of this discussion is the next topic, in that if you look at the next appropriation, what's happening is we're starting to cost more than the program's reimbursing us for. I'll illustrate that this year we have 2 dietitians instead of 3 dietitians that are servicing the WIC program, as well as we've lost some clerical and some office support in here. Your dietitian numbers last year were 3, and now you're down to 2. And so, you know, the farther reach on this is that Providence has dropped the WIC program locally, and Copper River has dropped it out as well. So, you know, it's part of the discussion on the next item, and I support it as well. I really want the services to be tendered appropriately, but what's important to this body is recognize is we can't start stretching dollars, and if you're going to make a commitment to appropriate $93,600 on this one for the next several years, we will need that money next year.
Well, and if I may, if I can correct, we actually pulled out of Providence because their rent was too high, even though that was a valuable location for us to maintain.
Yeah. Well, and Copper River didn't decide to continue their program for a funding and a logistics reason. Is that kind of how it happened?
I know that we were given last-minute notice. I'm not sure of the whys.
No. But I'm happy to move the meeting along.
Okay.
You know, again, if the amendment carries, I don't mind. I'd really just ask, and I'll ask it in the next one, is that before the grants are written, before we're expensing the money, this is a June to June type of thing, is let us have a chance to discuss the policy question of encumbering the money when you tender the grant. For example, can you come back to us in May and tell us a bigger part of the nature of the program that's going to request funding? My hands are tied now. We've made a commitment. We've expensed dollars, and now we can't discuss the merits of the program nor the design of it.
When I understand the grant program as a whole is a timeliness issue, represents a timeliness issue. I mean, so I can't sit here and promise you we end a grant, we ask permission by the administration whether they approve a grant or not, and we have to continue operations based on the nature of the business we do.
I'm not trying to dispute that you need to do that and you need your money to do that. What I would want is an opportunity to discuss the item before the grant's packaged and what we're going to do for the grant and how it's going to be tendered, much less the commitments that we've made to the employees of the city that they're going to continue to retain their jobs.
No one else in the queue, please vote on the amendment. Ms. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Trombley?
Yes.
That motion fails 7-4. We are now back.
I'm ready to call the question on the second one.
Yes. Please vote on the, as soon as I can get the queue. We'll go back and vote on the original. Please vote. Ms. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Trombley?
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously. We now have before us item 11J, a notice of reconsideration, AR 217, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $1,311,946 from the State of Alaska Department of Health and Social Services. Thank you. This item is before us.
And I guess before I do that, I'd really just want to reemphasize the point of our opportunity to weigh in on a policy question that the administration has for us. And I'll proceed to vote yes on this, but if I can get a commitment here, Mr. Mayor, that we have a chance to sort of get a presentation sometime in May or June on these programs.
We can do that.
My challenge is this, is that, and I've been studying these programs, and they all sound like pass-through grants, and it sounds wonderful, but what's happening with these employees is that their benefits and wages packages are starting to erode our ability to tender services. Case in point, this very program, the benefits package, last year cost the city $374,000. This year, if you look at this action, we're paying over $500,000 just for benefits. You've had to cut staff because of that. So there comes a time when we have to evaluate, are we decreasing our staff? Do we need to appropriate more money or find a different way of doing business? And I would want that. Mayor, if you can give me the pledge, I'm happy to vote yes on it. I don't want to make a big deal about it, but to get us into this ever decreasing, we're down to dietitian from last year. We're moving clerical staff, and the work burdens are going up. I don't want to get us into a place where it's starting to cost the city money.
No, and your point's well taken, and I concur.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I just urge, if you move to reconsider, I don't need to. So if you want to vote no on that, approval will stand.
Yeah, we never actually had a motion to reconsider, so the action stands as it did in the last meeting. Did you make the motion?
Apparently by writing, so I urge a no vote.
Okay. Everyone, please vote on reconsideration, urging a no vote. Ms. Johnston?
No.
Mr. Trombley?
No.
That reconsideration fails. We have now before us item 14A, a ordinance of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly to reauthorize certain boards and commission by amending the sunset provision in Anchorage Municipal Code, sections 4.40.020. Thank you. This item is now before us for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, this item is before the body.
Move to approve.
Okay, Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we looking at 60, the substitute?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. As I mentioned at our last meeting when this was introduced and we had the internal auditor's recommendations, I felt, and I still feel strongly, that we need to maintain the Youth Advisory Commission because we have a lot of youth in our community, and this is a really good avenue for them to get some experience and a little bit of expertise in how local government works and empower our youth. And I also would like to see the Diversity Advisory Commission remain in place, especially this evening after seeing the young people from Anchorage's Promise accepted an award and saying one of the reasons why they believe our community won the award as one of the best cities for youth is because of our diversity. And in light of that, I just feel really uncomfortable getting rid of the Diversity Commission and the Youth Commission, Mr. Chairman. So I'm going to be moving to leave both of them in the ordinance and urge the administration to work a little bit hard, and I'm happy to help to recruit folks to serve on both of these commissions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Motion, Mr. Jackson?
Mr. Chairman, if I may gently advise Ms. Gray Jackson, she may wish to substitute the original version, make that motion to substitute the original version to achieve her aims.
Mr. Flynn.
Yes, because I do want to clarify that 60S is what's on the floor. Mr. Horniman.
I'd have to echo Ms. Gray Jackson's comments. I also spoke against the abolishment of both these the commissions, and for the exact same reasons. And I'll be the first one to admit I didn't know we were having some difficulties in recruitment, and there have been an actual recommendation from the chair, a prior chair of the Diversity Advisory Commission, to perhaps either shift, if you will, or take the members of the Minority Community Relations Task Force and perhaps place them as the Diversity Advisory Commission for the municipality. The task force implements that there's a problem that we're trying to address, and the task force has been in existence through an agreement with the Department of Justice with the municipality since the early 80s. I would think that we should have been finding problems and solutions already, so a standing commission is more appropriate than a task force. Thank you.
Ms. Osiander.
We started this because we got initially some months back a recommendation from the administration to just get rid of a whole lot of commissions. And it was frustrating to deal with because all of us have greater knowledge of some commissions than the others. All of us are more familiar with one part of city government than another. And so I was struggling with that and thinking there should be some way to fairly evaluate these, not based on my personal feeling or my personal experience, but some rational way. So we all approved a new approach, and that new approach was we're going to look at these on a staggered basis, and we're going to ask an independent person, our internal auditor, to give us a report back of what they've done. And I personally think that was a good, logical, coherent way to approach this rather than emotional and personal. I think that rather than judging it's a wonderful mission or it sounds like it's a great thing, we need to look at this on what have they accomplished lately and really pay attention to the auditor's report. So what I did here, I'm certainly not against the intent of the Youth Commission or the Diversity Commission. In fact, both Ms. Drummond and I have history of really working hard to empower youth when we were on the school board, and I think that's a laudable goal. But if you don't have a logical, coherent way to deal with this, it's just going to get all balled up again. So I say, through no lack of respect for the great work that's been done in the past, it makes sense, since we've got this process, to listen to the internal auditor's recommendation. So that's just basically what I did, is I put this forward and just took what Mr. Rascom's recommended based on the analysis that he did. And I don't mean to slight either one of those bodies. I really, really don't. So I'm going to vote for this, and I guess I'd urge my comrades to do the same.
Mr. Horniman.
Well, I appreciate Ms. Osiander's explanation, and it logically looking at from the perspective of the report done by Mr. Askins and the internal auditor. What I read myself, Ms. Osiander, and to the colleagues, is that the difficulties in getting a quorum because of the members or lack thereof, and meeting regularly in meetings. And I will say that the past chair, the last chair of record of the Diversity Commission, he himself recommended, if you saw it in the report, that the Minority Relations Task Force perhaps merge into this commission. And I think that was a very sound suggestion as well. And again, I go back to the same logic with anytime you've ever heard of a task force, it's usually trying to seek solutions or strategies to standing problems. And at some point in time, you need to be able to say, we found those strategies, we've employed them, they've worked, and you abolish the task force and instead replace that with a standing commission, which I believe the Minority Community Relations Task Force should be. And so therefore, I think we found the answer to that one. As to the Youth Commission, tonight was a perfect example, particularly when they both were asked. And I was surprised. I thought I would hear, some of the great businesses that the youth can, access and gain, and maybe some of the libraries or, learning or whatever. I heard them both say diversity, which is ironic because now we're talking about what goes into the other wheelhouse. So I think we need to be very careful. I think that an audit is just that. It's an audit. And Mr. Raskins did a wonderful job, and I appreciate that. He pointed out the problems with attendance, and I think that for the lack of the problem getting a quorum and getting members is, in my opinion, what I read through it is that was the base and the crux of the problem. So I'd ask that we move the original ordinance, which would extend it, and then work real hard on making sure we make the proper adjustments.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Osiander, thank you very much for reminding us of the process that we all agreed on. But the thing that concerns me really are your comments that you made that, some of your colleagues may be taking this emotionally and personal. I just care about our youth, and I also see our community growing more and more diverse. So I don't think it's emotional or personal. It's just taking into consideration what we have here in our community. A lot of youth and 96 different languages spoken within our school district. And I would really very much like to see this body vote to keep both of these commissions in place and everybody participate in trying harder to make these very worthwhile commissions work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Starr.
Well, in specifics to the youth, I believe some of the history went back to when there was some skateboard problems and you sort of had a derogatory view on some of the youth activities in this town. Mayor Begich actually, I think, pressed hard for that, and we saw it out in our area where we had to take away our skateboard park. Ms. Gray Jackson, I'm addressing some of your concerns here on why
I'm sorry, I had her distracted, Mr. Starr.
That's okay.
I apologize.
Yeah, it's all right. I guess what I would also ask is that we look at the function and service of what the youth advisory is to do, and it's under the oversight of the Parks and Rec Commission. And so I guess I don't really see much value in that. Do I value our youth? Yes, I do. But that they have an input into their Parks and Rec program, I think they have that now. Several current appointments came in for the Parks Commission tonight, and I know some of them. Their chair, Joey Cacciarino, coaches skiing, coaches track, coaches field. She's very accessible to the youth. So we also have to be mindful of just what these boards and commissions do. A lot of them are advisory to the Assembly. A lot of them are advisory to other departments. They help us with modifying public hearings or taking public input and reporting back to us various times of the year, some annually. This one here, I think the youth is well served. We've got youth here that are serving a meeting because their teachers in school have asked. Access to the government is what you think you're going to get through a youth advisory commission, but in fact I say they have plenty of opportunities. So I don't think it's a slight to the youth by not giving them an opportunity to seat at the table. They can surely show up at all the other boards and commissions and testify, weigh in, give us their opinion, or speak directly to us. And that's I think, the opportunity we afford to them. So I'm going to stay the course. I think, without getting too worried, it also reduces the staff burdens and the ability for them to do well this. Mr. Rada, Parks Director, now is sharing a hat between a Parks and Rec Director for Chugiak Eagle River and one here in the municipality. So now you're going to ask him to perhaps chair another meeting, show up at another meeting. It's time to start to realize the long nights and the additional long days that these folks put in. And so the staff consideration is the other reason why I'm going to be supportive of the action here in front of us. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go to Mr. Honeman and Ms. Gray Jackson again, but I do want to wrap this one up. Mr. Honeman.
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we apply AO 2012-60, not the S version.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to substitute for the S version the original AO 60. I see no one else in the queue, so please vote on the substitution back to the original. Mr. Trombley?
No.
Ms. Johnston?
No.
That motion fails 6-5. We're back to the original S version. To vote on that, seeing no one in the queue, please vote on the S version. Mr. Trombley?
Yes.
Ms. Johnston?
Yes.
That motion carries 8-3. We now have before us item 14B, an ordinance authorizing disposal of real property known as the John Thomas Building and legally described as lots 9, 10, and 11A, Block 37B, East Addition subdivision located at 325 East 3rd Avenue. This item is before us for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all?
Hi, my name is John Hanrath with Intervention Helpline. We are on the second floor of the John Thomas Building. We need your help tonight to keep the doors open for the nonprofits and the low-cost and low-income families that the original building, at the time it was given to the city, that's what it was intended for. In any event, for the past 26 years, Intervention Helpline helped thousands of individuals, family members, experience the joy found in clean and sober lifestyles. We are the only agency in Anchorage and in Alaska offering services to those who have no funds, no insurance. A brief glimpse of some of the things that Intervention Helpline accomplished over the last 3 years. We facilitated 254 interventions, assisting individuals into treatment, helping families, and through the healing process. We assisted, assessed, and directed over 1,568 callers to treatment options for themselves, family members, and assistance not requiring a full-blown intervention. Thirdly, we provided assistance and guidance for referrals for over 2,877 phone calls from the community. We received these calls to help from homeless and chronic alcoholics, not only from churches, other agencies like South Central Foundation, Circle Recovery, Breakthrough, Providence, and other agencies that try to help people in treatment because they don't have insurance, they don't have any money, so they can't get into treatment. We work with Pathways through the Pathways 2 used to be a drunk tank. They used to call us, and between the two of us, we figure a place to get them into detox because there isn't any much detox here in Anchorage, and into free treatment. In making your decisions, think about the costs that will be incurred by just realizing three things that happen to our alcoholics and addicts. Number one, they're going to end up dead, so we don't have to worry about them. They're going to end up in a jail or institution. Or number three, they're going to get sober and be responsible citizens. That's what we want. Accordingly, consider the 254 individuals homeless or to be homeless, that we were able to get into treatment avoiding jail institutions over the past 3 years. Had we not been successful with those people who have ended up in jails or the institutions, I don't know what the institutional cost would be, but it would have cost the Department of Corrections an additional $134.90 per day, according to the Deputy Director of Corrections, per person for a year, totaling $4,923.80 per individual. Let's say that only 1/3 of the people that we put into treatment got sober and kept sober. Of those, we got off the streets and did make it. The city has, in essence, saved themselves $398,767 in the cost they would have spent in an institution, in your community jail. That doesn't cover the cost of the police pickups, community patrol, the like. In any event, it is more than a wash, from what I understand the mayor came up with last night on TV. He said that the maintenance costs were X number of dollars. Well, just through one agency that's in that building, we have offset that, because we were to get them off the dole and on the taxpayer rolls. They're going to help us as citizens here in Anchorage. Make those people be responsible. They want life. That's what they wanted. In any event, one more thing. In 2009, the real estate department at the city came to us and said, we are thinking about selling the building. And in that time, we asked them for paperwork on the building to find out how we could afford, the Older Persons Act group, how we could finance it so we could go out and get that. We didn't get that paperwork because I'm sure it's not the mayor's fault, but there's a lack of communication between the municipality and the nonprofits that are in the building, because we wanted to buy that building. We wanted to make an offer on that. But if you don't have the information in front of you to go to get grants, to make proposals to the people at Wells Fargo, Rasmussen, we don't have an opportunity. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. We have a question for you.
Sure.
Mr. Trainee.
Sir, have you guys looked at what would happen to your organization if you have to move out of that building? If it's sold and you have to move, where would your organization go? And your cost would increase because you're paying, what, 25 cents a square now?
Well, actually, I'm not sure what the increased cost will be, because there's numerous places that are available to move into. But on our floor, we have 5 different agencies that we share the rent that we're paying right now, because we got the Kidneys Association that just had a seminar helping people that are dialysis, that needed help. They're out there. I don't know what we're going to do, but I'm sure that there's opportunities. The problem was, a year ago, we were given the information that we would be there probably 2 years. We asked for this paperwork 3 years ago. We got it a week before we got the notice that we were going to be evicted. So, and I'm sure it's not the mayor. I think we need better communications, that we can work through this, because I'm sure there's, I thought about it last night. How can we continue to help the community, to help that person that's trying to get clean and sober? How are we going to help those people? And there's ways to do it. And I don't want to say that this is going to be a backbreaker for Intervention Helpline. It might be for Mabel T. Caverly, that's trying to give out food boxes and help the elderly. But an Older Persons Action Group, which we submitted paperwork, and if you take all the money and savings that we offer the city, I can't imagine why it's not a benefit to the city to keep us in that building.
So you asked for the cost of buying the building, and they didn't respond to you?
No, the problem was there was a loan on the building. As we understood it, it was $1 million. that they were going to have to repay, or whoever took over that building would have to repay, and we wanted to know what the conditions were, because there is extra office space in that building. But the problem is, we didn't know if we could rent that out, like take one floor, buy the building, rent the first floor to commercial business, and maintain the other floors so we could go forward and offer our service, continue to offer services. But without that paperwork, we don't know. Somebody talked about a mill rate that we had to have to take to the to like Rasmussen, so they could know really what that property is worth.
Well, thank you for the citizens of this town that you service with what you guys do. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Anyone else to testify? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Pat Abney, and I'm pleased that you're continuing this and working on a solution. I urge you not to sell the John Thomas Building, home to 6 nonprofits, all of whom provide valuable services to this community. It is my opinion that the services to the community of these nonprofits far outreach the subsidy provided by the city. If the city should have to pick up the services provided by these nonprofits, or they were to be lost to the community, the cost is more than I can imagine. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Assembly members. I'm going to have to grow, or I'm going to have to bring this down.
I think if you hold the bottom, it should bend down maybe.
Okay. I'm probably a little too late for me to
We can hear
grow.
you well.
Okay, great. I'm Sandy Camry with Mabel T. Caverly Senior Services. I'm the executive director, janitor, whatever. Okay. As most of you probably know by now, we specifically outreach to lower income, minority, or frail elderly. Amongst our programs are a grant for dental work, eyeglasses, hearing aids, prescriptions, a grant for small emergencies like a broken washing machine, a pipe that's leaking, little things not so big that a big grant, that somebody will qualify for a big grant, but a small amount of money that can make a big impact in the life of the senior. We also have food boxes, as John told you. We have a small food shelf. We have pet food. We have Mabel's Closet, which is a thrift room. So in answer to a question earlier, for us, if we leave, I have done some market research. We would probably spend $1 to $1.25 square foot instead of our 25 cents a square foot. And so based on our $197,000 budget, we would get approximately 1/2 the space for twice as much money. In human terms, that means that about 65% of our clients will have to go by the wayside. We won't be able to provide services for about 65% of our clients. And we'll be back to the grants and the transportation, but the food, the pet food, the food shelf, Mabel's Closet, and a lot of the little ancillary stuff that, because they're there for one of the other things, then they find out about and they join the center, or they also get information about something else that'll help them. All that'll be gone. So I wanted to make the point that the building was made. I mean, once the municipality decided to get a CDBG grant to renovate that building, it became a building for nonprofits that help low to middle income people. I mean, that's us, except forget about the middle income people. There aren't too many of those. But low income, we got you covered. So, in fact, however many, 9, 10 years ago now, when we were in the quote-unquote little house on 5th, it was the municipality of Anchorage that came to us and said, your clients are the ones that, belong in the John Thomas building. So you're the kind of agency the John Thomas building is for. So now what was...
Ma'am, I'm going to need you to conclude, but I do have questions for you.
Yes.
Mr. Trainee.
Ma'am, how many seniors do you take food baskets to?
How many do we take food boxes
to?
to?
Get food baskets.
We have 45 on our monthly list, 10 of whom roughly we take each month the box and pet food or ancillary food.
My mother lives in Washington State, and she's 87, and they do that down there too. And she really looks forward to people coming and bringing that basket to her.
It's important. It's important. Cost of gas, even if they do drive, a lot of them can't get there, and the box is heavy.
She's no longer driving.
I have some that I wouldn't recommend they drive.
Okay, we have no other questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else to testify?
Good evening. Assembly members, Mayor, and interested persons. My name is Kevin Turkington, and I am the founder and CEO of Midnight Sun Home Care, serving senior Alaskans since 2002. I am also a past board president of the Older Persons Action Group, serving 7 years from 2003 to 2010. I speak to you this evening in opposition to the sale and change of use for the John Thomas building located on 3rd Avenue. As leader in the Anchorage Senior Services community, my company and I spend a lot of spare time giving both in time and resources to assist 2 of the organizations that are occupants of the John Thomas building. The Older Persons Action Group has been serving Alaskan seniors and their families since 1968 through many vital programs, and more importantly, the Senior Voice newspaper, the only one of its kind in the state, successful in reaching out and bridging the gap between the road system and rural area seniors and their families for over 25 years. It's where Alaska gets its news regarding seniors in Alaska. Several years ago, my company adopted Mabel T. Calvary Senior Center as our focus for our support, sponsorship, and fundraising through available community events, some of those hosted by Mabel T. Calvary Senior Center, and among others in the community. The one thing that rings truest for this humble and valuable organization is that most everything it takes in goes directly to the seniors they serve. The services offered and the many seniors supported by these programs are critical. Without them, most of these seniors would be displaced. I heard Mayor Sullivan mention in a radio interview in the past week that to keep the status quo for this building and the organizations within it would be fair for the many other programs and cuts being made in Anchorage. But I submit to all of you that which you already know: life isn't fair. And fair isn't a very good gauge in determining the value of a service or a program that has helped so many for so long who would be lost without it. I believe to sell the John Thomas building and displace these vital community services is the wrong thing to do. And if the municipality is so determined to do so, I believe it owes, at minimum, a huge debt of gratitude to these agencies for the great work they have done in our community for so many years, and assist them to move and subsidize them in a more up-to-date location. To do anything less is nothing short of disrespect to our seniors and the many other individuals that these agencies and programs serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is David Wong. I'm the Acting Executive Director of Older Persons Action Group. Older Persons Action Group, also known as OPAG, is a nonprofit organization that operates programs to help Alaska seniors, especially the low-income and vulnerable. OPAG came into being in the late 1960s as a grassroots movement in Anchorage and moved into the John Thomas building in 1974. Before it was named the John Thomas Building, John Thomas served for a time as OPAG's board president. For almost 40 years, OPAG has been in the building offering programs that benefit the community and state. OPAG pioneered programs in computer training and job placement for seniors, transportation and housing assistance. OPAG was instrumental in founding the Chugiak and Maple T. Caverly Senior Centers. Other programs OPAG has sponsored over the years include personal care assistant and certified nurse aide training, ESL classes for immigrant seniors, counseling and assistance on Medicare and Social Security, including multilingual counseling. We published a directory for older Alaskans since the 1980s, and we published the award-winning Senior Voice newspaper, which is provided free to low-income seniors. New programs in the works include collaboration with the Anchorage Senior Citizen Advisories Commission on an education and outreach program to make retail businesses more senior-friendly. We've committed to provide office space and equipment for that. Having a stable home in the John Thomas Building has been a vital interest in sustaining programs and developing new ones for OPAG and other nonprofits. And there is a long list of other nonprofits who have resided in the building over the years before moving on. Red Cross, Salvation Army, Easter Seal Society, National Federation of the Blind, RSVP, Alaska Legal Services, Alaska Public Interest Research Group, to name just a few. I brought copies of the 1993 ordinance in case they weren't distributed. I'm going to leave them here available. This was the ordinance approving the Community Development Block Grant appropriation of $897,000 to OPAG for renovation of the John Thomas Building. It notes that the renovation will help OPAG and the other tenants better serve their clients who are low-income, disadvantaged, and older persons through a more efficient facility. It was signed by former Mayor Tom Fink. I want to stress that OPAG's mission remains the same. There has been no change of use since this 1993 ordinance, and OPAG is being subsidized to provide services that the community has acknowledged are valuable. And when you look at demographic projections, Alaska has the fastest growing senior population in the nation. The need for these services is only going to grow. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no questions. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Rod Oliva, and after listening to that, I almost feel like Ebenezer Scrooge to come up here and say that my suit is going well against the Brother Francis Salter, Beans Cafe, and the city. I've met with a mediator, and we may go down that road, but one thing that I'd like to throw out on the table is, besides just killing my spirit and my business, I'm willing to trade my land. I want out. And I think this is an opportunity here to entertain not a sale, but a possible trade. And then you can do what you want with my property, fence it, put campgrounds, tents, anything you want. But I want it known that I'm open to negotiation to do a trade. I definitely feel it's my only out. I've tried everything from every politician from Johnny Ellis down to the community council, every commission. It's real difficult to pierce the moral veil that they defend themselves with, and I really believe this state's going from a worker state to a welfare state. And if I can get something on the table and something working, Chief Justice Buchever said there's no justice for the common man because it's too expensive. And in this lawsuit, it is expensive. And getting the city, I commend Mr. Wheeler and Mr. Owens. You've saved you a lot of money because of the indemnity clause that it'll fall back on BFS's insurance. But I want to let you all know it's on the table, and it's goodbye to my business and goodbye to Fairview, because there's no sense staying. Anybody have any questions? If you can break out the checkbook, I'd really feel good about that.
Thank you. There are no questions. Anyone else to testify? Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Pat Sledge. I'm president of the board of directors, Mabel T. Cavalry Senior Center. And I would like to say just a few words. I'm a little nervous, but you have to bear with me. I just wanted to say that Mabel T. Cavalry is centrally located for all of our people, and we do the DEEP program. We help people, the dentist and the prescriptions, and then we have patches, which we help, if we have the money, that is, to help people with, maybe they have a flat tire, they call us, or prescription, you know, want money for that. And also, we have appointments and the van trips. And, well, just down the road a little bit is Brother Francis and the Bean Cafe, and I think right across Caddy Corner is going to be a soup kitchen. I'm really not for sure on that. But anyway, we have people come in, and also we have, like Sandy said, we have food boxes, and I give those out to the people. They come in. I know some of them by their names, too, and I hate for us to have to move out of that building and leave these people have nowhere to go, because some of them walk in, some have cars, and they just know us. And I just hate for us to lose the building. So I'd appreciate it if you would help us. Thank you.
You did quite well.
Thank you, sir.
There are no questions. Anyone else? Good evening.
Hello, my name is Pillow. That's my whole name. Yeah, I'm that one. I wasn't planning on speaking today because I figured that my countenance doesn't really represent senior need or need by all the other people that are served by the services at Mabel T. Cavalry. I'm blessed. I have a wonderful house I live in because of the magnanimity of my wonderful husband, who has a full-time job. I have health care because of his full-time job. But it always hasn't been that way. I have been a recipient of a variety of services, not just in this state, but other states as well. I've seen hunger, I've seen homelessness, and I've seen the devastation that drugs can bring. And currently I'm dealing with elder issues with my own parents out of state. My best friend is 76 years old, hearing and vision impaired. She's the one that introduced me to the Mabel T. Cavalry Senior Services. And now I'm a volunteer one afternoon a week because I am blessed. I have the freedom and the time to donate my time and efforts. And I do that with a variety of organizations around town, the Red Cross, the Blood Bank, the Alaska Health Fair, and stuff like that. I think that Anchorage is also blessed. And if you can find it somewhere in your heart to continue to help these organizations, to help the people, that you should really do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you. I'm Rob DeVellis, 20-year resident of Anchorage, and I'm here to request that the John Thomas Building not be sold so that the vital community services provided by the organizations there can be continued at that location. That's all I had.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anyone else? We will continue testimony on this. This is now before the body. Mr. Trini?
Move to postpone to the next meeting, sir.
Second.
Okay. Any objection? Seeing, hearing none, this item will be carried over to our next meeting. We are now at item 14C, AO number 96, an ordinance to the Anchorage Municipal Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Code section 21.47.060 to extend primary and secondary. Thank you. This item is for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, Yes, ma'am.
No.
Okay. Seeing none, this item is before the body. Mr. Trombley.
Move the yes version.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Mr. Trombley?
Well, it's pretty well determined, or pretty well stated in the AM what this is for. What, you know, the sign ordinance, whether you like it or not, had some unintended consequences. Some of the way that some of the buildings are placed is that they're primary and secondary frontage, where under the current sign ordinance you can only have your sign, isn't necessarily the best place for your sign based on how the roads around you are major arterial, stuff like that. So this is to rectify that. The only other thing I'd like to say, Mr. Chairman, is I'm not entirely sure if I have to move an amendment, but on page 2, line 19, I need to insert a date of November 5th. So if that takes a motion, then I move to add November 5th to line 19.
No. No, we don't need a motion. We'll just add that date. Ms. Tucker?
Thank you. Through the chair, that is not the date that you would want to add. November 5th will be the date that the P&Z will hear this, and so you wouldn't want to put before November 5th on the resolution. Instead, you would want to insert the date of the first meeting in November, which I believe is November 13th.
November 13th is correct. You okay with that, Mr. Trombley?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the clarification.
Okay, thank you. And actually, I've queued Mr. Flynn up to move on this as far as carrying it over. So if you've got nothing else to add, I'll let Mr. Flynn make his motion.
That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Indicated by the prior discussion, this needs a review by P&Z, so I move to postpone consideration of this item to our meeting of November 13.
Second.
Okay. Any objection? That will be carried over to our meeting of November the 13th. Thank you, Mr. Trombley.
I just want a clarification.
Yes,
on the
Mr.
action.
Starr.
So is somebody taking the ball and putting this in the queue of planning and zoning, or is there, how does it get done through our action if we postpone this encouragement to go to planning and zoning? Somebody's still doing it, though.
Ms. Tucker?
Through the chair, Erica McConnell has confirmed this evening before she was excused by Ms. Osiander that this will appear on the agenda for the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that was coordinated through Jerry Weaver and Erica McConnell. As the clerk pointed out earlier in discussions with the chair, though, the public hearing will be open tonight because it was notice for public hearing, and the final action of the public hearing can also be concluded tonight, but the final action of the assembly won't be taken until November 13th.
Great. You answered my question if it makes the agenda for P&Z, and it sounds like it is. Thank you very much.
Yes, and I will note we did close public testimony, so it will come back to us for action. Very good. We now have before us item 14D, AR number 223, a resolution municipality of Anchorage appropriating $100,000 from the state of Alaska. Thank you. This item is Thank you. This item is open for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, this item is before the body for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, and we have no one in the queue. Please vote. Ms. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Trombley?
Yes.
That item passes unanimously. We now have before us item 14E, AR number 224, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $2,031,179.
Waive reading.
Thank you. This item is is open for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing and hearing none, this is before the body for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
No one in the queue to speak. Please vote. Mrs. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Trombley?
taller than I am.
I appreciate you equating me to Mr. Train. Yes.
That motion carries unanimously. For 14F. We now have before us item 14F, AR number 225, a resolution of the municipality of Anchorage appropriating $230,788 from the state of Alaska.
Waive reading.
Thank you. This is before us for public testimony. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all? Seeing, hearing none, this is before the body.
Move to approve.
There's no one in the queue. Please vote. Mrs. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Trombley?
Yes.
That motion carries unanimously. We are now at special orders, of which we have none. Unfinished agenda, none. Audience participation. Anyone to testify? Anyone at all?
Mr. McGrath's going to testify.
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, and members of the Anchorage Assembly, my name is Tom McGrath. It's time for redistricting, and I know that you've determined that you're malapportioned here about 2 months ago. But I think at this time, instead of just redistricting like we've done in the past, why don't we fix the charter? The purpose of proper proportion of potential voters to elected officials is, of course, one man, one vote. I would suggest the following, and this has come up many times over the years, but the Assembly or the voters haven't followed through. Change the charter to single-member districts with a term of 3 years. That way we don't have to worry about the single-member district and the dual-member districts. Also, I would encourage you to actually look at the charter of school board members at the same time to have 11 single-member districts. After all, their budget's almost twice what yours is. I think people are also getting voter fatigue with municipal elections. Why not move the election back to the fall and let the state run the election? This allows candidates to campaign in good weather rather than in the snow. And I think we've all talked about that at one time or another. I don't want to open my door and talk to any of you with my door open in February. Sorry. By using the full 6 months to finish redistricting that you have, you shorten the period that candidates can campaign for the next election. I've also been told that the population may not have changed significantly enough and that redistricting might not be necessary, but I remind you that the single-member district is supposed to move from time to time, and the last time it did is when it moved from Eagle River to downtown, and I can't remember what year it was back in the 1980s. I think that it's time to change to go from as close as possible to one man, one vote, and that would be single-member districts. And instead of doing that by initiative, which could be done, I would think it'd be one heck of a lot easier if the Assembly did it, because the last time we had it on the ballot, there were some kind of screwy ideas that went along with it, and therefore it failed, where if you logically came up with the initiative and put it on the ballot, I think it would be approved. Thank you.
We have a question for you, Mr. McGrath. Mr. Flynn?
I'm a little hurt that you wouldn't talk to me in February just because it's a little chilly outside. Thank you for coming down tonight. You and I had a little exchange earlier in the week. I guess I'd just like, for the benefit of the body, to emphasize I think it's very important we take, at the very least, a look at rotating the single-member district elsewhere within the community as we go through this process, and I appreciate Mr. McGrath bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Osiander.
Request the clerk's office put some notice on the municipal webpage about that Title 21 meeting. It's awfully short notice for canceling, and I'm loath to do it. So thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am. Assembly comments or a motion to adjourn? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.